This is Hannibal from the Hannibal TV on YouTube with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Saturday night's main event last weekend had a 20.6% decline in ratings from the debut episode last month, only did a 0.33 rating. Hulk Hogan was advertised for the show for weeks, but backed out at the last minute due to his son Nick getting married. Meltzer brings up he doesn't understand how this could have happened because if it was a last minute marriage and they'd already known about Hogan being booked for the show, why would they have made it on a day that Hogan was being advertised for worldwide for this big event? And if it wasn't a last minute thing, why did he wait to the last minute to pull out? Who knows? Meltzer brings up the Triple H is absolutely in charge of picking who goes into the Hall of Fame since Vince McMahon was ousted from the WWE. He also chose last year. Surprise, surprise, it's a work in wrestling, him pretending that he didn't know he was getting inducted for the second time, by the way. Not saying he's not a Hall of Fame worthy person. He's worthy for his political stuff backstage, possibly the greatest politician of all time, and he had a good career. As far as Stephanie McMahon, Triple H's wife, who knows if she was ever really out of WWE, but she's going to be back doing a WWE series on ESPN in March where she's going to be on camera. Buff Bagwell, 55, was back in prison this week for violating conditions stemming from a 2020 DUI hit and run arrest. Jordynne Grace has officially signed with WWE, which has been known for months that she was going to re-sign. She's expected to be in the Royal Rumble. However, she's doing a thing where she's publicly saying she's not going to be in the Royal Rumble. She also did this last year when it was rumored she was going to be in the Royal Rumble due to WWE's relationship with TNA, where they sometimes use TNA wrestlers. It's more of a serious relationship now with those two companies. But even last year, she was saying she was not going to be in it, and she was. What the point of saying you're not going to be in it? To surprise people, I guess. Unless you end up winning the Royal Rumble, which, although they definitely like her, I don't think they're going to have her win it. I don't see the point of the surprise, but it's not like she's going to make a difference in anyone watching the Royal Rumble either way. Apparently, Cody Rhodes is a 15-1 favorite to beat Kevin Owens in the Royal Rumble main event. A match we've seen multiple times already, and it's been obvious that Cody Rhodes is gonna be the winner every time. And it's very likely that John Cena is gonna win either the Royal Rumble or the Elimination Chamber and go on to face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. That seems to be the plan at this point for one of the WrestleMania matches. WWE Hall of Famer Abdullah the Butcher, who Meltzer brings up, was one of the biggest drawing cards in the history of wrestling. One of the highest paid wrestlers of the 70s and 80s, was backstage at Raw in Atlanta taking pictures with wrestlers such as Cody Rhodes and Natalya. He had also been backstage at SummerSlam taking pictures with Triple H and The Undertaker. He is 84 years old now. SmackDown last week from Austin, Texas, had 9,953 fans in an arena that holds over 15,000. Still a good crowd. Raw in Atlanta, where Abdullah the Butcher was hanging out, had about 12,000 fans. Capacity of that arena is 17,000. AEW's Collision and Ring of Honor tapings in Jacksonville, Florida last week, which is their home state, Dali's Place. A lot of comps, apparently 2,900 fans. The stadium has 5,500 capacity. It appears that what was once being billed as an Australia pay-per-view type event has now been reduced to a collision taping in a couple of weeks in Australia. That's been moved from a stadium to an arena that apparently was considered old in 2001 when WCW ran. Matt Riddle no-showed a Memphis wrestling taping January 25th. He was at Nick Hogan's wedding the day before. Sorry, January 26th. He had been at Nick Hogan's wedding the day before. The rumor is he's charging $8,000 for independent wrestling appearances, which to me seems crazy. I don't know if he's going to draw $8,000 worth of fans, not to mention whatever his travel is. TMZ is reporting that Nikki Bella is in talks with WWE about returning. I could understand why they would want to sign her, because Bryan Danielson, who is her brother-in-law, is heavily affiliated with AEW. He's still working with AEW, although he's not on television right now. But it's not like Nikki Bella would make a difference in AEW, but it would be another recognizable face in AEW, and they don't have all that many recognizable faces overall compared to the WWE roster. And she's still in her early 40s, which is young for AEW, where they have a lot of wrestlers still wrestling in their late 50s, early 60s. Titan Towers, the old WWE office building from 1991 to 2023, was sold to MB Financial for only $3.75 million, which is low considering it's a 94,000 square foot office building. Apparently, they're going to turn it into houses or apartments. Ed Wiskowski, who was the Polish Prince and Colonel De Beers in wrestling, passed away January 22nd due to an undisclosed illness that he had had previously. He was 80 years old. The one thing I will mention about, he did do a racist character in the 80s. The one thing I will mention is that character would never work now. But one thing I don't understand for wrestling being considered, they always call it a television show, the longest running episodic television show. While regular television shows could use guns or racism storylines and no one would care. But if you try to do, like, and it's happened to a very low extent. There was some heat back in the day with the Nation of Domination for doing more on the edge of racist angle. And then when and I thought it was stupid at the time, the Austin Brian Pillman gun angle. That got so much heat, but if these guys are just actors and it's just a television show, even though they're not in the actors union, nobody believes it's real. Why can't they do controversial angles that would get heat without getting backlash? I'm just saying, I just find it weird that, like, regular TV shows can do whatever storyline they want with no backlash. But that Colonel De Beers storyline, even though he might be considered the greatest heel in wrestling if he were to do an angle like that, and I haven't heard anything that he was legitimately racist. Like, I haven't heard anything but that it was just a wrestling character. So that's the only thing. Like, why is it considered so bad in wrestling if there's movies about racism all the time? Roddy Piper did some controversial stuff too, yeah. And today it's just so politically correct. None of that would fly. And again, I just don't understand if it's just entertainment, why are they held to different standards than movies and television shows? That's just one thing I don't get. Why do they have like Jinder Mahal was apologizing? I mean, let's face it, he's washed up at this point. He pretty much got his push because they were looking to expand in India at the time. But like he was apologizing for something no one even remembers, something he had said related to China like years ago, and it's like no one even remembers this, and it was a storyline. You're just saying what they wrote you, so why even bother apologizing for it? PCO, 57 years old, is doing the rounds complaining about his TNA release. He's alleging apparently at one point he was promised the title. Meltzer says it's unclear if this was a Scott D'Amore promise or the new regime, but it's believed either way he was expecting it. Again, I mean, I could understand maybe 5 or 6 years ago when he had some buzz about him on the Indies around the time he had that match with Gunther that helped got Gunther hired. I could see why they would put stuff behind him, but at this point, the whole Frankenstein gimmick thing, I mean, it's run its course. And according to Meltzer, he was being paid a lot of money. Apparently, D'Amore, by the way, the company never made any profits under D'Amore. And he was paying people more money than they were taking in. And that was one of the reasons his contract was renegotiated and ultimately not renewed. They did re sign Nick Nemeth, AJ Francis, Frankie Kazarian, Mustafa Ali, Masha Slamovich, John Schuyler, and Ash by Elegance as of late. Steph DeLander, who was PCO's storyline wife, is claiming that she has the digital media title that PCO tried to destroy with a sledgehammer, but obviously it didn't break. If you've seen the video, and TNA has stated that was not the real title. The other thing PCO is always bringing up, and I will say good for him, the first night of their Montreal tapings, the second night bombed. You can see the footage of it, but the first night at the Verdun Auditorium, they did have a good crowd. But wrestling has always drawn well at the Verdun Auditorium. It's a historic wrestling building in Montreal that Jacques Rougeau sold out with his independent federation, which was mostly kids, year after year after year after year. Like 4,000 or 5,000 people Rougeau would get in there. I was on some of those events. So I know Kevin Owens was actually on a bunch of those events. So it's just a historic arena that's going to draw no matter what. They were also doing $10 tickets and 2-for-1 tickets at one point, and had local people in a battle royal where they did the deal with whoever sold the most tickets would win the battle royal, which ended up being Carl the Duke that sold the most tickets. So it was like there was a lot of factors that got that Montreal crowd, whereas the Dallas crowd that TNA recently got, of about the same amount or more, was more based off of the product itself. Apparently, he's been injured a lot lately. But yeah, he can still go for his age, and I think you'll see him in ECW, or not ECW, GCW. You'll probably see him continue in GCW. That would be my prediction. Wish everybody a good weekend. There might be news with Vince McMahon later today. But again, this is Janelle Grant. She has another opportunity to refile the lawsuit and have one last chance to try and get it in regular court. It looks like it's going to be forced into arbitration, where it was, according to the settlement she signed, any issues with it were supposed to be in arbitration. Her lawyer has one more chance to file a new claim today to explain valid reasons why it should not be in arbitration, which were the terms she had agreed to originally. So I'm sure her lawyer is going to at least try to put up some sort of claim on why it should be moved to arbitration. Let me know what you're looking forward to, if anything, in the Royal Rumble this weekend in the comments. Have a great weekend. I'm heading off to the